the last hour, the Foreign Office have summoned Israel's ambassador to the UK, Zippy Hotovelli, in to meet UK officials. David Menzer joins us, a spokesperson for the Israeli government. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. What happened?
Firstly, Tom, thank you very much for having me join you. Look, it's a terrible thing which has happened. I think there's a feeling of grief in this already grief-stricken country, because we know that, to be blunt, WCK are one of the good guys. You know, the dilemma we face here in Israel is that we're trying to get rid of Hamas from Gaza and make sure they don't ever pose a threat to us again, and of course release our hostages. And part of that is making sure that as much aid as possible goes into Gaza to feed ordinary civilians, not Hamas. We've got no beef with the people of Gaza. We want them not to be affected by our war against Hamas. But the dilemma we have is so many of the aid agencies, particularly UNRWA, have been fronts for Hamas. So we were working with WCK. Obviously, something terrible has happened. There is an investigation.
You have given us the context. I've asked you for what happened. What happened?
Well, clearly something terrible has happened. I mean, that's why
so Israel is responsible for the missiles that hit those vehicles, correct?
We are now conducting an investigation, as you would expect from a democratic country with a freedom of press and scrutiny and all the checks and balances. We are now carrying out an investigation, but it's very, very clear that the defense minister, the IDF spokesman, the prime minister have all said that this is a terrible occurrence, and we will need to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. I can't, Tom, with the best will in the world, I can't share with you exactly what happened. I wasn't there on the ground at the time.
Well, the information from the ground and from the charity is that 3 cars were travelling some distance away from one another at a time in a deconflicted zone, having given the IDF warning that they were moving, with vehicles that displayed, 2 of them at least, displayed their logo on the roofs. The video and the images from the ground show the logo that has now had a missile go through the top of the roof of the car. Israel targeted these vehicles deliberately, didn't they?
So, Tom, unless you have some sort of knowledge which we don't here in Israel, perhaps you can share that with us, because what has happened is clearly something terrible has happened. I mean,
what was the Prime Minister describing as unintentional when he said that this was unintentional?
Well, of course, it's unintentional. WCK were one of the first organizations. Well, whatever's happened, and as I said, there'll be an investigation, and it's important not to
How can the Prime Minister describe as unintentional something that you're unsure about what's actually gone on?
Tom, I say again that WCK are one of the good guys. They actually sent a team to Israel. They were one of the first NGOs to send a team to Israel after the October the 7th invasion by the Hamas invasion force into my country, when they did the terrible things which they did. So there is a real grief in this country about this, because these guys are some of the unsung heroes of all conflicts around the world. So it's a terrible thing that's happened. It's certainly not acceptable, which is why we're taking it extremely seriously from the top to the bottom of this government. We want to know exactly what happened.
The information on the ground suggests that 3 vehicles were deliberately, directly targeted in what the Prime Minister Netanyahu describes in an unintentional fashion, although the pictures would disagree with him on that. This convoy was in a deconfliction zone, having given information to the IDF about where it was going. What other aid organisation could now trust that the information it gives to the IDF to protect them will actually be listened to?
So I say again, Tom, clearly something terrible has happened. We are investigating it. As I said before, these are very, very difficult scenarios. Hamas, unfortunately, are stealing aid from their own people. There's no one hungry in Hamas. You can be sure of that point. They steal the aid, and they put it back onto the black market with vastly inflated prices. We've been working closely with WCK because
not closely
we want
enough,
as much
unfortunately.
aid.
Because if you were working closely with them,
clearly,
there wouldn't be seven people dead, including three British nationals.
Tom, it's simply obscene, to be fair, to say that this was in any way intentional, because I wouldn't be here expressing, what I've been expressing already if it was intentional. When we go
you didn't
after
intend.
Hamas,
one might think that you didn't intend to target a charity, but clearly the targeting of the convoy that they were in was intentional. It's not an accident that the missile hit the roof of this vehicle, is it?
Look, something catastrophic has gone wrong here, and the IDF are investigate it. It'll be in an independent investigation. You can be sure of that. And from the top highest levels of this government, the Prime Minister's made clear that he's spoken to his counterparts in other countries and the other countries of the people that were affected in this. It is a catastrophe. We're trying to get as much aid into Gaza and we know that WCK was one of our most trustworthy partners because we believed that they were not part of Hamas. We believed that they would get actual aid through to the people which actually need it rather than Hamas stealing it. So something terrible for sure has happened, but I can't tell you more than that except just to say that the grief is real in this country. Britain, of course, is our closest partner in Europe. It's an extremely important relationship. None of us here forget the fact that Rishi Sunak came to Israel very soon after the October 7th massacre, and he said very clearly to the Prime Minister, he said, and I remember these words, I'll never forget these words, he said, "We want you to win." And the reason there is that partnership between Britain and Israel is because Israel has saved umpteen lives on the streets of Britain. Our intelligence.
That partnership is being tested, Mr. Mensah, isn't it?
It is. It is being
with
tested.
Incidents like this.
Unfortunately, Tom, there is a terrible war going on. It's not a war that we started. It's not a war that we wanted. But we must finish this evil of Hamas to allow for a better future for the people of Gaza, and of course for my people here in Israel as well. So we're trying to free Gaza from Hamas, the genocidal, murderous organization. But we need to ensure that as much aid as we can possibly get through to Gazan civilians actually gets through without Hamas looting the aid.
Thank you for coming on the programme. David Mensah, spokesperson there for the Israeli government.